So I will let you all know this is live and unrehearsed. So bear with us.
Yes.
This should last an hour, but everybody's going to be phenomenal. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the Ponderosa spirit.
Well, don't be surprised if you see a cat coming across the screen.
We're fading into the main street in Virginia City and it's daytime. Hoss and Joe are riding down the street aimlessly.
This is great. I wish Pa would go away more often.
Yeah, no work. Wonder when he's coming back.
No telling. These vine trips can take a long time, but knowing Pa, he could be back tonight.
I guess so. Let's go have a beer. I'm getting tired of riding around.
Now you're talking.
They turn the horses around and head for the saloon, passing the theater on the way.
Hey, Joe, look at that.
What?
A sign in front of the theater.
The sign reads, Madame Cara, spiritualist. I can't say that word. All-seeing, all-knowing. Performance starts at 8 p.m. sharp.
Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we stay in town, have dinner, and see a show?
Well, we can't do that. You know what Pa said. The stock has to be looked after, and that little mare is about to foal.
Oh, come on, Joe. The stock can wait, and the mayor don't need us.
No, you can stay, but I better get back. What if Pa comes home early?
I guess you're right, but let's have dinner first and a couple of beers. It's still early.
Talk me into it.
As Hoss and Joe continue on down the street, the camera pans back to the sign of Madame Cara and holds on it for a few seconds. We're fading out. Hoss and Joe ride up to the saloon, dismount, and hitch their horses to the rail and enter the saloon. Joe and Hoss enter, they look around, they see an empty table and head for it. Joe sits and Hoss goes to the bar.
Hi, Pete. How's business?
If everybody ate and drank like you, it'd be pretty good.
So I asked, give me a couple of your warm beers and 2 of your cold steaks with all that trimming.
2 warm beers coming up.
Thanks, Pete.
Hoss goes over to the table, nodding at people as he goes. He sits down with Joe and hands him his beer.
Hey, Joe, what kind of an act do you think this is? Madame Cara puts it on.
Well, from the sign, I don't think she does an act like a regular show. I think she holds a seance.
A what?
A seance.
What in tarnation is a seance?
Seance. I'm not too sure, but I think she talks to spirits.
Oh, that's just a bunch of hogwash. How can anybody talk to spirits?
I don't know. I sure can't.
I can't either, but it sure ought to be fun sitting in on that seance.
Seance. Yeah.
Hey, seance.
Just don't you go drinking or bringing any stray spirits home. You know what Pa said about you picking up strays.
The bartender enters and puts steaks on the table.
Let's eat.
Hey, Pete, let's have a couple more beers here.
Hoss takes a bite of his steak.
Hey, this is darn good for a change.
You're right. They must have a new cook.
Maybe we can get Paul to replace Hopsing.
Or replace our cows.
Hoss laughs. Pete enters with 2 more beers, sets them on the table.
Pete, darn good steaks. Done just right.
How'd you like them, Joe?
Pete exits toward the bar. Hoss and Joe continue eating and sip their beers. As they eat, they overhear a conversation between two men at the next table.
Sam, you ever hear of this Madame Cara before? Yeah, saw her in Dodge City a couple of years ago. She's a real looker, tall and regal. What exactly does she do? I said I saw her, but I don't rightly know what she was doing. She has all these people from the town sitting around this here table, and then she goes into some kind of trance. And in this trance, she answers questions that the people ask, and also talks to the dead relatives. That sounds like a lot of hogwash. Why do they sit around a table? I guess she can talk to the spirits better that way. Sounds kind of silly to me. I guess so, but it will be something to see again. Maybe she can tell me where a gold mine is.
Hoss will stand up, yeah.
Maybe she's found one. Us!
During this time, we can go through shots of Joe and Hoss listening. At one point, Hoss motions to Pete for a couple more beers. They're going to be drunk. Pete returns with beers for them.
Hey, thanks, Pete.
I wonder if she really can answer folks' questions and see into creatures.
I doubt if anybody can do that unless they're clairvoyant.
Claire who?
Oh, clairvoyant.
Who is tarnation is clairvoyant?
Remember that gypsy girl that Pa helped out?
Her name was Claire, Joe?
Hoss, just listen. That gypsy girl who could see into the future and predicted many things that were going to happen, and her family kicked her out of her homestead for being a witch? Well, that's being clairvoyant.
Oh, yeah. Didn't Paul have to book around on that? And I wonder if she's still around the house.
I don't think so. I think he gave it to the girl's family so they could understand this sense she had and not be frightened by it.
I guess it's getting late. I better get going so I can get a seat up close.
Okay, but remember what I told you. No strays and stay out of trouble. We don't want Pa to think I can't take care of you.
Hoss doesn't think it's very funny.
Oh, come on, Joe. I'm too big for you to take care of me.
Hoss gets up and starts to leave the saloon.
See you later.
Outside in the street, nighttime. Hoss leaves the saloon, mounts his horse, and heads for the theater. There are several townspeople heading down the street toward the theater. As Hoss pulls up in front of the theater and dismounts, he nods a greeting to several of the people. He looks kind of sheepish, as though he is too big to attend something like this. This is outside the theater at night. People are milling about. Hoss works his way through the crowd and reaches the door. He enters. Inside the theater, the camera pans to the stage, and we see a large round table in the middle of the stage with perhaps 12 chairs around it. A voice is heard asking the people to please take a seat and to keep the talking to a minimum.
There is room for only 12 people at the table. Those of you who wish to speak to your loved ones, please take a seat.
Hoss tries to sit down in the audience, but something compels him to go up on the stage and sit at the table. After everybody is seated, Madame Cara enters. She is a beautiful woman, tall and blonde, wearing a beautiful flowing robe. She nods at the people and sits right next to Hoss. As she sits, she stares at Hoss. Hoss fidgets, and just for a second, he is reminded of his mother. Cara looks away from him and gives her attention to the rest of the townfolk.
As I look around the table, I see some familiar faces. There are those whom I have met before at a different time and a different place. It is good to see you again.
Cara's voice is quite soft but commands attention. The camera goes around the table and we see all of the people smiling at Cara. Yet there is something akin to fright in their eyes, as though they know what to expect, and it scares them.
For those of you that are new to this table, I demand absolute quiet. No whispering among yourselves and no snickering. If you do not believe what you see and hear, I must ask you to keep it to yourselves and wait until the proper time and leave the table. I will have no doubters here. Do all of you fully understand that?
She looks around at the table and we hear a murmuring of assent.
Good. We now understand each other. I'm going to pass around a little piece of paper to each of you, and you are going to put your name on it. Then fold the paper and pass it back to me. As I look at the name, I will look directly at the person whose name is on the paper. Don't be alarmed if I appear to go to sleep in my chair. I'm communicating with the spirits. You will hear the voices of your loved ones through my mouth. There are no gimmicks or wires either over the table or under it. I must ask you to keep your hands flat down on the table in front of you.
We see now the table, and we see the people bring both hands up on the table. The camera stops on Haas's hands and goes up to his face. He's looking at Kara as if he can't keep his eyes off of her. I'm sure he's never seen anything like this or her. The camera returns to Kara's face, and she looks at Haas, and her eyes seem to burn into his, and he drops his eyes. She looks around and sees all hands are on top of the table.
We will now commence. The first name is Carl Owens.
She looks at Carl and then leans back in her chair and looks off into space. She slowly closes her eyes and appears to be napping.
Your brother is doing all right, Carl. There are no problems. He can't talk to you right now as he is beyond our realm right at the moment. Maybe later he will be able to greet you.
A moment passes. Camera moves to the faces of the table during this moment, and we see skepticism on their faces. Kara snaps to and goes to the next piece of paper, opens it, and reads the name.
Anne Gregory. You want to speak to your husband. He is coming.
We see Anne Gregory. Her face reflects fear and awe as we feel there is something in the area other than mortals. It's as though a cold draft came into the stage, although the doors have remained closed. Kara speaks, and although it is her voice, it has deepened considerably, and there is a quality to it that sounds like Anne's husband, as we can tell from Anne's face. She looks like a frightened deer.
My dear Anne, don't be sad. I am well and happy. Please don't mourn me. We will meet again. Goodbye.
Anne starts to cry, sobbing, and the mood is broken. She gets up from the table and runs down the aisle and out of the back door. Back to Kara, she looks around the table and her eyes light on Haas. He looks as if he is going to break and run also. He's not too sure he likes this. He starts to get fidgety. Finally, Kara speaks to him.
Haas Cartwright. I see a beautiful blonde girl, tall and stately. She's your mother. Her name is Inger. The last name is rather blurred. It's coming to me slowly. No, that's not it. Borgstrom, that's it. Inger Borgstrom.
Haas's face shows his astonishment. To his knowledge, he's never met this woman before or heard his father ever mention her name.
How did you know that?
Shh, I see more. She has a brother. He was also referred to as Haas. His name was Gunnar. I'm tired now. That is all for tonight. Please tell the other people waiting that there will be no more sittings tonight. Your money will be refunded. Thank you for coming.
Disappointment shows on the faces of the people who didn't get a chance. Kara gets up from the table as the others all slowly rise and start to walk out. Kara goes to the wings of the stage and Haas calls out after her.
Miss Kara?
Haas walks over to her.
Yes, Mr. Cartwright.
May I talk to you for a moment?
Of course. What can I do for you?
How did you ever meet my mother?
I never met your mother.
Then how come you described her so perfectly and Gunnar?
The spirits told me. I saw your mother quite clearly.
That's impossible. My mother's been gone for many years. Anyway, there is so much thing to say.
Aren't there, Mr. Cartwright?
Haas looks confused. Here is apparently an intelligent woman telling him there are spirits and ghosts. He doesn't know what to think.
Shucks. No, Miss Carr. We could see them around us.
Not necessarily. They only show themselves when they want to.
Miss Kara, I know this may sound strange, even fresh, but could you come home with me to the Ponderosa? My brother Joe would never believe me when I tell him about you. We have a real nice place. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Mr. Cartwright, it sounds interesting. I will be happy to go. I always wanted to see this country, but never had the time.
Do you have to do another show, or can we leave right away?
No, that was my last performance in Virginia City.
Good. You go pack and I'll hire a rig.
It won't take me long to get ready. Call for me at the hotel.
Hoss turns away and exits the theater. Kara watches him go, and a slow smile starts on her face. It was easy to wind Hoss around her finger. It won't be so easy with his father, but she has her foot in the door, and her problem seems to be a little easier. Kara looks around the theater and then exits. We are now outside the theater, and it is night. We see Kara leave the theater and walk down the street toward the hotel. You can see Hoss riding in the street toward the livery. As he rides, he gets the feeling someone is watching him, and he occasionally glances behind him. We see nobody, but he kicks his horse to make him move a little faster. Hoss reaches the livery and dismounts. It is nighttime at the livery. Hoss ties his horse to the rail and walks into the stable. Hanson, the owner, walks up to Hoss.
Well, howdy, Hoss. What can I do for you?
I'd like to rent a carriage, Mr. Hanson.
Sure, Hoss. What kind? 2 people or 4? Hoss?
Oh, what, Mr. Hanson?
I asked you what kind of a rig did you want? 2 people or 4?
Oh, 2 people. I'll get it back to you tomorrow.
Keep it as long as you want it. That's $2 a day, Hoss.
Hoss reaches into his pocket and pulls out a couple of bills and gives them to Hanson.
Just have a seat, Hoss. The rig will be ready in a minute.
Okay.
Hoss sits down on a bench. A cold chill goes over him, and he shivers. He glances up and down, sees nothing, and shrugs. He can't stay still, though. Hoss gets up and starts to pace. Finally, Hanson calls him, and Hoss goes out of the stable and to the side of the building. It is the outside of the livery at night. Hoss walks over to the rig.
Here she is, Hoss, all ready to go.
Thanks, Mr. Hanson.
Hoss climbs into the rig.
Oh, Hoss, do you want me to keep your horse here until you return the rig?
No thanks, Mr. Hanson. I'll just hitch you to the back.
Hoss climbs in and goes to the front of the livery, stops and climbs down, goes to his horse, unties it, and then ties it on the back of the rig. He again climbs into the rig and turns the horses around and heads toward the hotel. It is the street and at night. Hoss drives the rig toward the hotel. There is the usual activity that goes on at night in Virginia City. Hoss reaches the hotel and pulls up. He jumps down. It is the exterior of the hotel and night. Hoss ties up the horse and enters the hotel. Hoss looks around, but he doesn't see Kara. Usual extras are milling around in the hotel. That's you, Ginger. He sits down and he does Kara come down the steps with a boy carrying her bags. Hoss goes over to her and takes the bags from the boy. He reaches in his pocket and hands the boy some change.
Were you waiting long, Mr. Cartwright?
No, ma'am. Just got here. Shall we go?
All set. I settled my account earlier.
They leave the hotel. Hoss puts the bags in the rig and then helps Kara in. He hops in and they start off. They ride in silence for a little while as they go through the town.
Why so silent, Mr. Cartwright?
Please, call me Hoss.
All right. Why so silent, Hoss?
Just thinking, Miss Kara.
What about?
I can't figure out how you know how much about my family. It's downright eerie.
I wouldn't worry about it too much, Hoss. There are some things that are unexplainable.
It is the countryside at night. There is a full moon, and it's one lovely night. At times, Hoss glances behind him and peers out into the darkness as though something were following them. Kara notices but says nothing.
This is beautiful country, Hoss. These trees are magnificent.
They sure are. My Paul says you should never cut one down until you know it's been planted.
That sounds like a very good rule.
They enter the lake area. The moon is shining down on the lake, and it shimmers and sparkles. Kara is awed by the beauty.
Paul, very proud of the Ponderosa.
And well, he should be. It's too beautiful for words. Does he own all this land?
Yes, ma'am. As far as the eye can see and farther.
It must have taken years to develop and grow.
He did it all by himself. Joe and I was too little to be much help. My older brother Adam helped a lot.
That's right. You do have an older brother. I forgot about him. Is he at home also?
No, ma'am. He's traveling through them foreign countries across the sea. No telling when he'll be home. He likes it over there. We prefer the ranch life, though.
I don't blame you.
Hey, what did you mean when you said you forgot about Adam? I never mentioned him.
You didn't have to, Hoss.
Hoss starts to reply and then clams up. The rest of the ride is made in silence, each with their own thoughts. They are now in front of the Ponderosa at night. They arrive. Hoss leaps down and helps Kara out of the rig. He then takes the bags and leads Kara into the house. Joe is sitting on the sofa reading. Hoss and Kara walk in. Joe looks around and his eyes bug out when he sees Kara.
Well, what have we here? Hoss, I told you to stay out of trouble.
I did, Joe. I'd like you to meet Madam Kara. This is my brother, Joe.
I'm very glad to meet you, Mr. Cartwright. I hope that you don't think I'm trouble.
Oh, no, ma'am. It's just that with Hoss, well, I've heard a lot about you. Your work sounds very interesting.
It is interesting. We can talk about it sometime. I've heard a lot about you, too.
Joe is very impressed by Kara's beauty. He's making the most of it.
I hope some of it's been good.
Oh, definitely. Your brother is quite a fan of yours.
You must be tired, Miss Kara. I'll show you to your room.
Fine, Hoss. I am rather tired. It's been a long day. If you will excuse me, Mr. Cartwright.
Only if you'll call me Joe.
All right, Joe.
Hoss and Kara exit upstairs. Joe sits as though stunned.
Wow. Wait till Pa sees her. I didn't know you had such good taste, Hoss. You must have had some hidden charm that I never noticed.
To both statements, I don't. But I had to bring her here. I'll tell you about it after I take care of the horses.
Need some help?
No, I think I can manage.
Hoss exits the house. Hoss walks over to the rig with his head down, deep in thought. He gets to the rig and without looking up, reaches for the reins to untie them from the fence. There are no reins. Startled, he looks up. The horse is not connected to the rig nor to the fence. He is just standing there. He looks to the rear of the rig and sees that his horse is unsaddled but still tied to the rig. He looks down and sees the saddle on the ground next to the horse. The look on his face is of absolute astonishment. He takes both horses into the barn. Inside the barn, Hoss beds down the horses, making sure there is water and feed, and then leaves. Hoss walks toward the house, shaking his head. All of a sudden, he brightens. Joe must have unsaddled the horse and undone the rig. His step is lighter and brisker as he goes toward the house. Hoss enters, and Joe is still sitting on the sofa. Hoss walks over to him.
Thanks, Joe. That was a big help.
What was a big help?
Why I'm doing the horses?
What horses?
Come on, Joe. The horses outside.
I haven't been outside.
You must have been.
Why must I have been?
Somebody must have unsaddled my horse and unhitched the rig.
Sure, you did,
I didn't. It was already done. You must have done it.
but I didn't.
Is Hopsing around?
He went to bed hours ago.
Quit kidding, Joe. Horses just don't unhitch themselves.
Well, according to you, these did.
The heck with it. I'm going to bed.
I think that's a good idea. You need the rest. You're not looking well, Brother Haas. I think the seance was too much for you.
If I wasn't so tired, I'd tell you about Madame Karen told me.
What did she tell you?
You wouldn't believe me. Aren't you going to bed?
I want to finish this book. Good night, Haas.
Night, Joe. See you in the morning.
Hoss starts to turn away, but he turns back.
Hey, by the way, did the mare have her full?
Not yet.
Hoss turns again and goes up the stairs to his room. Not 10 seconds go by when he rushes back down the stairs. Joe looks astonished.
I thought you were going to bed.
Who turned down my bed?
Oh, don't look at me. I don't go around turning down people's beds or putting mints on the pillow for that matter.
It turned down when I took Madame Karen upstairs. She sure didn't do it.
Maybe her spirits did it.
That's not very funny.
Well, I thought it was. Oh, go to bed.
I'm scared.
What the devil are you scared about?
Madame Karen scared me. The seance scared me. And now this horse scares me.
Don't be silly. Go to bed and we'll talk about it in the morning. Do you want me to tuck you in?
No, I'm sure the spirits will do it.
Hoss storms up the stairs. In the living room, in the middle of the night, Joe is sitting on the couch, drowsing, holding the book in front of him on his lap. All is quiet throughout the house. All of a sudden, the book is flung from Joe's hands. He nearly jumps 5 feet into the air.
Who's there?
He looks around and sees the book on the floor, quite a distance from him. He walks over to the door, sees it firmly latched, and then goes over to the windows. They are tightly shut. He walks over to the book, picks it up, and then sits down again. He settles down and starts reading.
I must have been dreaming.
At the bottom of the stairs, the camera shows going up the stairs and somebody walking on them. The camera stops just outside of Hoss's door, and the door flies open. Hoss is in bed, sound asleep. All of a sudden, the covers come flying off of him. Hoss bolts up in bed. He sees the open door.
One tarnation, who's there?
He gets out of bed and starts searching the room.
Come on out, Joe. Quit playing games. I know you're in here.
Hoss looks under the bed and sees nothing.
Boy, he sure gotta get out of here.
He goes to the open door, peeks out, and looks around, and then starts to go down the stairs. When Hoss gets to the bottom, he sees Joe still reading.
What do you pull this cover off me for?
Now what are you talking about?
You know darn well what I'm talking about. Don't try to tell me you didn't come up and pull the covers off me.
You're having nightmares, Haas. I haven't budged from this sofa since you left, except to check the door and the windows.
What'd you do that for?
I felt a draft, and I wanted to check to see if they were closed.
Were they?
Yes, they were. Now, what are you getting at?
If the doors and windows were shut tight, how could you feel a draft?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was my imagination.
Well, it wasn't my imagination when the covers come off.
You probably kicked them off in your sleep. You've done that before, you know.
I know, but this is the first time they ever flew off.
Well, there's always the first time. Maybe you're developing a stronger kick. Keep practicing. You never know when there might be a prize for cover kicking. In the meantime, go back to bed and forget it.
I sure wish Paul would come home. There's something funny going on.
The only thing funny going on is your mind. I'm going to bed whether you are or not. I can't finish this book with all your interruptions. You can sit up the rest of the night if you want. Good night.
Joe gets up and walks up the stairs to his room. Hoss walks around the room, goes to the window, and looks out. He sees nothing, shrugs, and goes up to his room. It is now the next morning, and it is a beautiful day. The birds are chirping, and the sun is shining, and Hoss has circles under his eyes. Joe and Hoss are at the breakfast table, just starting their breakfast, when Kara comes down the stairs. Joe and Hoss jump to their feet. Joe reaches her chair first and pulls it out very gallantly, and with a sweep of his hand, seats Kara. Hop Sink enters from the kitchen, and Hoss introduces Kara.
Very pleased to meet Missy. What will Missy have for breakfast? We have eggs, hot biscuits, bacon.
Coffee and a biscuit, please, Hop Sing. Oh, and juice if you have it.
We have. Come right up.
He goes back into the kitchen.
That's not much of a breakfast to start the day off, Miss Kara.
I rarely eat much breakfast, Hoss. I'm overdoing it eating the biscuit, but it sounded so good.
Hopsing makes the best biscuits in Virginia City and then some.
Hoss must know. He samples every one of them from here to Virginia City and then some.
Oh, Joe, that's not true.
But Joe, Hoss is a growing boy. He needs his energy. Speaking of energy, you look like you could use a little bit this morning, Hoss. Didn't you sleep well? You look a bit peaked.
Hoss had spirits chasing him all night, and he didn't get much sleep trying to catch the little devils.
Cut it out, Joe.
Hop Sing enters carrying a tray of biscuits, eggs, juice, coffee. He goes around the table, giving the food to the Cartwrights. Kara takes a bite of her biscuit.
Hop Sing, these are delicious. Very light and tasty.
Thank you, Missy Kara. If you want anything more, just holla.
Hop Sing exits.
Now, Joe, just what in the world were you talking about? What spirits?
I think your little seance kind of undid my older brother.
What has the seance got to do with it?
I think he thinks that you conjured up spirits to haunt him.
Oh, that's nonsense. The spirits I talk to aren't flesh and blood. They can't come through another world.
Well, Hoss thinks they can.
Why don't you let me talk to for myself, Joe? Madam Kara, I don't think that there are spirits floating around. I don't know what to think. All I know is that something funny is going on, and it just seems to be happening to me, not anybody else. I don't like that either.
What seems to be happening to you?
Well, that's hard to explain, and you probably won't believe me anyway.
Try me.
Okay, here it goes. The horses unhitched themselves. My blankets come flying off me. The bedspread was off the bed when I went upstairs, and I remember making the bed myself yesterday morning, and I don't remember turning the spread down last night.
Those aren't unusual things. Maybe somebody did them for you.
Joe says they didn't, and Hopsing wouldn't unhitch the horses. Besides, he was in bed when blankets flew off me. You certainly won't do it, would you?
Of course not. Did you ask Hop Sing about these incidents?
No, I just know he didn't.
Well, why don't you go in the kitchen and get me some more coffee? And while you're there, you can ask him.
Okay.
Hoss gets up and exits to the kitchen. Hop Sing is at the table drinking coffee and reading a paper. Hoss sees the biscuits on the stove, and as he reaches for one, it jumps off the stove and lands in Hop Sing's coffee, splattering the coffee all over Hop Sing. Hop Sing jumps up from the table and knocks the cup off, shattering it on the floor. He looks up and sees Hoss standing there with his mouth open and starts cursing him in Chinese. He looks for something to grab to hit Hoss with. Hoss runs out of the kitchen and makes a beeline for the door. In the dining room, Joe and Kara look up in astonishment as Hoss comes running from the kitchen. Hop Sing comes running after Hoss with a broom in his hand. Joe tries to intercept Hop Sing to find out what happened. Hop Sing dodges Joe and makes the door, and out he goes after Hoss. Joe and Kara follow them outside. Hop Sing is chasing Hoss around the yard with the broom hollering at him.
I didn't do it, Hop Sing. Put that thing down and I'll try to explain.
You only one in kitchen. Biscuit didn't fly by itself.
Yes, it did. Calm down and let me explain.
I calm down after you clean up what used to be clean kitchen.
I'll be glad to. Now, put that broom down.
Hop Sing stops brandishing the broom like a weapon and lets Hoss come close to him. Just as Hoss reaches him, up comes the broom and claps Hoss over the head. Hoss lets out a yelp and the chase is on again. We hear a horse in the distance and Joe and Kara look down the road. Ben comes riding in. As Ben rides in, Hoss runs to Ben and tries to hide behind his horse.
What in tarnation is going on around here? I go away for a few days and havoc breaks out.
Tell Hop Sing to stop chasing me, Paul.
Joe is laughing and Kara has an amused expression on her face. She is studying Ben very carefully. Ben dismounts and leads his horse up to Hop Sing, who is still brandishing the broom.
Hop Sing, will you please put my horse away and give him some oats?
Hop Sing takes the horse and leads him into the barn. Hoss breathes a sigh of relief.
Now, would somebody please tell me what's been going on while I was away?
Well,
I went to a
Hoss attended
seance and
Now, hold on just a minute. One at a time. First things first. Will somebody please introduce me to this young lady before we all get embarrassed? Hoss, seeing as how you seem to be the one in the most trouble, you may speak first.
Paul, I'd like you to meet Madam Kara. Madam Kara, my Paul Ben Cartwright.
It's a great pleasure, Madam Kara?
Just call me Kara. It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Cartwright. Your name is well known throughout the country.
Well, it's nice of you to say so. To what do we owe the pleasure of your visit, Kara?
Your son Hoss was kind enough to invite me to your home. I have a show of sorts in Virginia City, and
She gives seance, Paul. She knew so much about you and mother that I had to invite her out.
Knew so much?
Yes,
I can't see staying out here and discussing it. I guess Hop Sing has cooled off enough by now to be allowed into the house. Remind me to ask you about that too, Hoss.
yes, sir.
They all troop into the house, Kara leading. Joe snickers to himself.
Please make yourself comfortable, Kara. Would you like some coffee?
I would love some, Mr. Cartwright.
Please call me Ben. Joe, would you please get Madam Kara a cup of coffee?
Joe goes to the kitchen.
Now, Hoss, you have some explaining to do. Why was Hop Sing chasing you? What did you do to him?
I didn't do anything.
You must have done something.
I went to the kitchen to ask Hop Sing something and saw some biscuits on the stove. I reached for one, and one that jumped off the stove and landed into Hop Sing's coffee.
Joe returns with the coffee, hands it to Kara, and sits down.
You mean one slipped out of your hand?
No, I mean one jumped off the stove with no help from me.
Are you sure you're all right? You don't have a temperature?
I'm all right, Paul. I'm telling the truth.
Did Hop Sing see this biscuit jump off the stove all by itself?
No, he was reading.
Then it's only your word that the biscuit jumped all by itself?
Yes, sir.
Hop Sing!
Hop Sing comes in from the kitchen and stands in front of Ben. He glares at Hoss now and then.
You call, Mr. Cartwright?
Yes, Hop Sing. Did Hoss throw a biscuit at you this morning?
Yes, he did.
Did you see him throw it?
No, but I sure didn't throw it at myself. If Hoss didn't throw it, who did?
That's what I'm trying to find out. The whole affair seems rather childish to me.
I told you, Paul. Nobody threw it. It threw itself.
This is getting us absolutely nowhere. Thank you, Hop Sing.
Hop Sing exits.
Now, Hoss, what was all this about a seance? And what were you doing in town when there was work to be done?
Joe did the work,
So now you're letting your brother do your chores?
but Paul,
No, but you know.
Excuse me, maybe you would rather discuss this in private. I'll go freshen up before lunch.
Thank you. We'll call you when lunch is ready.
She exits and Ben watches her with interest as she goes up the stairs.
If you don't need me, Pa, I'll go check on your horse.
Fine, Joe. What's gotten into you? You shirk your work and expect Joe to do it all?
Paul, if you just listen to me, there's something about Miss Kara that's spooky.
Come on, Hoss. Kara is just an entertainer. She puts on an act and that's all there is to it. There's nothing spooky about that.
Then how's come she knows so much about me and Paul and you and the rest of the family?
That's not so hard to figure out. We aren't exactly strangers in Virginia City.
I guess you're right, Paul, but besides the biscuit jumping off the stove, other strange things have happened.
Like what?
Well, my horse was unsaddled itself.
Oh, come on, Hoss. You don't believe that.
I don't know what to believe anymore. Joe said he didn't do it. Hobson doesn't know how to unsaddle a horse. At least to be pretend he doesn't know.
Maybe one of the cowhands did it?
I only went into the house for a few seconds. If anybody was out there, they couldn't have done it in that short of time. And I didn't see anybody around. Also, the rig was unhitched and nobody in that fast.
Where was Joe at the time?
He was in the house.
How much beer did you drink last night?
Not enough to imagine these weird things.
Hoss, you must have dreamt them.
Yeah, but Paul, it isn't possible for a guy to dream when he's wide awake.
Hoss, you do that most of the time.
Before Hoss can answer, Hopsing enters and announces lunch.
Itakate, lunch is ready.
Thank you, Hopsing. Hoss, go tell Madam Kara that lunch is ready.
Hoss exits up the stairs. We are now in the dining room. Ben, Joe, and Kara finish up lunch. Hoss is still stuffing himself.
I hope you enjoyed lunch, Kara.
Ben, it was just delicious. If I stay here much longer, I'll be as big as Hoss.
That could never happen.
Thank you. By the way, your ranch is just beautiful. Hoss pointed out parts of it on the ride in.
There's a lot of it you haven't seen. Why don't you take a ride with me while I check over what the boys have or haven't done? Sometimes I wonder when I take a trip whether it's better for the boys to do what I tell them or not to do it.
Aw, Pa.
Paul,
You may both be excused.
Joe and Hoss get up from the table and go into the living room.
Kara, would you like to take that ride now?
I'd love to.
Joe, hitch up our rig and then take the rented rig back to town.
Okay, Pa.
Hoss, go check the progress on the mare, then check the cattle on the South Range.
Hoss and Joe exit the house.
I'll go get my wrap.
I'll be right here waiting.
Kara goes upstairs. Outside, Joe is tying the reins to the fence.
All set, Joe?
Yes, Pa. Have a good time.
Joe looks wistfully at Kara as she crosses over to get into the rig. He jumps forward to help her into the rig before Ben has a chance to do it. Ben walks around to the other side and gets in.
Don't dawdle in Virginia City. Get back and help Hoss.
Okay, see you later.
Joe gets in the other rig and rides off, his horse tied to the back. We see Ben going off in the opposite direction. Now there is a scene of hills and lake. The rig is parked on a hill overlooking the lake. The view is different from previous ones and is breathtaking.
It must make you proud to have such a beautiful ranch and such fine sons to help you run it.
Yes, it does, Kara. I'm sure I sure couldn't run the ranch without them.
You've done very well in raising your boys without a woman in the house to help you. Don't you sometimes think that you need a little feminine touch?
Ben goes
Well-
along with her flirtation.
Well, that thought occasionally crosses my mind. especially when I'm in the company of a beautiful woman. Enough about me. Why did you tell me about yourself and how you happened to become a spiritualist?
That's a long story, Ben. It might bore you.
Nothing about you could bore me.
Okay, you asked for it. My family came to this country from Sweden. They lived in a small village and the villagers felt that the women in our family were blessed with the power of clairvoyance. When they came to this country, they didn't want people to know about this power. My father was a chef, and my mother raised my brothers and me very simply. But she used to tell me stories of the family power. I became intrigued with it and studied books that had been written on the subject. Then I decided I wanted to see as much of the country as I could. The only way I could earn a living while traveling was to practice spiritualism. People hear what they want to hear, and I've done quite well. But occasionally, I do get clairvoyant feelings. In fact, I felt this way when Haas came to the theater. By his reaction, I could tell that what I sensed was accurate. I told him just enough to wrangle an invitation. I have to follow up on my feelings.
Well, I'm delighted you did.
Besides, I wanted very much to meet you.
And now that you did,
I am also delighted.
well, it's getting pretty late. I think we ought to head back.
There's a concerned expression on Kara's face. Has she gone too far? Only time will tell. Ben gets the rig going. It hits a bump and throws Kara up against Ben. She clings to him and gives him a semi-seductive look. Ben puts his arm around her, looks at her as if he's going to kiss her, then changes his mind. He straightens her up with his arm and then takes the reins in both hands.
Giddy up!
The rig takes off. It is now the South Range. Hoss and Joe round up the cattle. Joe looks for strays. The scene is peaceful and serene. Some of the cattle graze. All of a sudden, one of the cows stands up on her hind legs and does a form of a bunny hop right in front of Hoss's eyes. He practically falls off of his horse.
Joe, come quick.
What's the matter? What are you hollering about?
Did you see that?
Did I see what?
One of the cows stood on her hind legs and danced.
Boss, I think the heat has gotten to you.
I saw it with my own eyes.
Well, then you better get another set of eyes. I think yours are all worn out.
Don't be so funny. I saw that cow stand and on its hind legs and jump up and down.
Hey, diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. Did your cow jump over the moon?
I tell you, I saw it. Stick around and maybe she'll do it again.
I haven't got time to sit and watch for cows dancing. I have to go look for strays before it gets too dark and the light is fading now. I'll see you later at the ranch.
Joe leaves. Hoss sits on his horse looking as though he has been kicked in the stomach. Hoss rides up to the cow that danced, gets off, and licks the cow right in the face. The cow winks at him and moves off. Hoss stands there dumbstruck. Inside the living room at night, Ben sits in his favorite chair sipping coffee. He's reading a book. At closer look, we see the title, Ghost and Apparitions. The front door opens and Joe walks in. Ben turns to see him.
Where's Hoss?
I imagine he's out dancing with cows.
What in the world are you talking about?
Oh, Haas is seeing things again. Nothing worth mentioning. I imagine he'll be along shortly.
Well, go wash up. Dinner will be ready pretty soon.
Joe exits up the stairs. Ben goes back to reading his book. The front door opens and Hoss comes charging in. Ben doesn't look up.
You're late.
Paul, you'll never believe this.
Try me.
I saw a cow stand on her hind legs and dance. Then she winked at me.
You're right. I don't believe you. Go and wash up for dinner.
Dejected, Hoss turns and starts up the stairs. In the dining room, the family is at the dinner table. Hop Sing serves Hoss. Kara is telling Joe about her ride around the ranch. Hoss starts to tuck his napkin under his chin, The other end flies up and hits him in the face, which makes him jump. He knocks the tray from Hop Singh's hands. Hop Singh's attention was on Kara, as were the rest of the family, and nobody noticed the napkin hit Hoss. Noodles land on Hoss's head. Hop Singh, without a word, picks up the bowl and places it none too gently on top of the noodles.
That looks very becoming, Oz. I think you could stay like that until the Easter parade.
Now what happened, Hoss?
Paul, if I was to tell you, you wouldn't believe me. Again.
Hop Singh, go get some more noodles and we'll try again. Just steer clear of Hoss's area.
Hop Singh exits and enters the kitchen. Now the family sits around in the living room drinking coffee and brandy. Joe and Hoss are on the sofa. Ben and Kara wander around the room, and Ben shows Kara some of his books and knickknacks that have meaning for him. They are not paying any attention to the boys, only each other. Joe and Hoss seem to be aware of this fact.
Joe, what's on the agenda for tomorrow?
Did we finish up the South Range today? And are your strays all accounted for?
I think so. Maybe we should check the fences. We haven't done that for a while, long time. Also, there are a couple of horses to be broken.
Do you want to just break them, or do you want to teach them how to dance?
Before Hoss can answer, Joe turns away to stoke the fire. Joe turns back and reaches for his brandy. The glass is empty.
You've got your own brandy. Leave mine.
What are you talking about?
I went to take my first sip, and it was gone.
Well, I didn't touch it. Maybe Ponderosa Spirit was thirsty.
What Ponderosa Spirit? What in the world are you talking about?
Oh, forget it. I'll get you some more brandy.
Hoss gets Joe's glass, gets up, and goes to the brandy bottle. Ben and Kara re-enter, and Kara suggests they get a breath of fresh air.
It's such a beautiful night. Let's go out on the porch.
Sounds wonderful. Coming, boys?
No, Pa, I've had enough fresh air on the range today.
Hoss?
I'm with Joe.
Ben shrugs and exits out the door with Kara. On the porch.
It certainly is a beautiful night.
The moon is full and bright. These are the kind of nights I miss living in the city. Even in Virginia City, the moon doesn't seem the same.
Speaking of cities, where do you go from here? Are you following any sort of pattern?
Yes. Prior to coming here, I was in Reno. Now I go to Carson City, El Dorado, and Placerville. Then on to Sacramento and San Francisco.
Sounds like quite a tour.
I have a breathing spell between Sacramento and San Francisco.
While Kara has been talking, she has edged considerably closer to Ben. Ben starts to put his arm around her, making the attraction very mutual. All of a sudden, the door to the house flies open, and Hoss comes bounding out.
Paul, do you have a book on ghosts?
Hoss, don't you have any manners?
Yes, sir. Well, do you?
Yes, I do. I was reading it earlier. What in the world do you want it for?
I'm just curious about something. Where is it?
I put it back on the shelf just above the desk.
Thanks, Paul.
Hoss races back to the house.
Ghosts. What my sons won't think of next.
Well, that is my line, you know. We do conjure up spirits from another world.
Do you really believe in that?
There are times when something unexplainable happens, but most of the time it's done with wires and mirrors and a good advance man.
Why are you telling me this? I thought you people never gave away secrets.
Because I want to be perfectly honest with you.
And why is that?
Well, if you don't know, I won't try to explain it right now.
Ben gets the picture. He puts his arm around her.
I didn't mean to be coy. You are a very lovely woman, and I'm flattered that you would even think something like that.
They are about to kiss when the door flies open and Hoss comes charging out.
Paul,
Now what is it?
I found something in this book around a chicken ghost.
A
A
what?
what?
Chicken ghost.
You're still not getting through to me.
Here, look.
Hoss shoves the book at Ben and points to the word he is trying to pronounce.
Here it is in black and white. A poltergeist.
He means poltergeist.
Kara reacts quite visibly. Ben looks at her concerned.
Are you all right?
I'm rather tired. Would you mind if I retire early?
I'm sorry. It has been a long day. Get a good night's rest, and we'll see you in the morning.
Thank you. Good night, Ben. Hoss.
Good night, ma'am.
Kara goes into the house.
Now, Hoss, let's talk about your poultry geese.
Let's go get some coffee first.
Okay, sounds good to me.
They go into the house. Hoss goes to the kitchen to get coffee.
Joe, do you know what your brother is driving at?
Beats me, Pa. He hasn't confided in me.
Hoss enters with a pot of coffee and cups. He puts them down on the table and proceeds to pour coffee for the three of them.
Now, Hoss, what's on your mind?
Well, you know, Paul, all the strange things that have been going on around here. This goose could be the answer.
Hoss, you're the only one that anything's happened to. Besides, you don't really believe in ghosts, do you?
I didn't before I met Madame Kara.
You don't think she's a ghost?
Of course not, but
Did you check everybody in and around the house to see if they were playing tricks on you?
I sure did.
And?
They didn't know what I was talking about.
There's one thing I haven't mentioned to anyone.
What's that?
Well, the other evening, the night that Hoss says these eerie things started happening to him, well, that night he brought home Madame Kara, and well, something peculiar happened to me.
Well, tell us what it was.
Yeah, Joe.
Well, it's not much, really. I was just reading that evening, and the book flew out of my hand. It happened twice. At first, I thought it must be a draft, a rather large one, I guess, but I checked all the windows, and they were closed tight, and so was the door. It all seemed so silly, I didn't want to say anything about it.
So you just let me think I was going crazy. Of course, everything was happening to me and nobody else saw them.
There has to be a logical explanation for these things, and I can't quite make myself believe that a poltergeist would be in this house. What would it be doing here, and how did it get here?
Ben looks toward the stairs.
No, it couldn't be. She admits to being a fake. I'm just being silly.
What did you say, Paul?
Nothing. Let me see that book again. I didn't get to that chapter when I looked through it.
Ben sits in his favorite chair and reads aloud.
Poltergeist, a noisy spirit, never seen. Freakish sounds and actions make his presence felt. He generally isolates one person to persecute, sometimes picks on others in same household, generally haunts people rather than places. Sometimes poltergeists are conjured up by mediums.
Mediums.
It's quite possible Madame Kara is a carrier of the poltergeist.
You think a nice lady like that?
It has nothing to do with being nice or not nice. If she is a carrier, there's not much she can do about it.
A carrier? Does that mean she also has a disease?
Don't be ridiculous, Hoss. It means,
Joe turns
what
to
does it
himself.
mean, Pa?
It just means that through some psychological way, the poltergeist has attached itself to her.
While Hoss and Joe are digesting this, we go to Kara's bedroom. Kara frantically looks through an old book. She mumbles to herself as she thumbs through it.
Where is it? Where is it? A poltergeist. Could it be possible? I think I recall something in these family diaries about my ancestors being carriers.
Kara grabs another book and begins to look through it.
Let's see. Here's a passage by Grandmother Ingrid, entered October 10th, 1786. During the seance at the Bergstrom house, a most unusual thing took place. The Bergstroms' 8-year-old son was suddenly the object of many strange occurrences. Objects began to fly about him, and some even struck him. It lasted for a couple of hours and then stopped as suddenly as it had started. The only explanation to which I could attribute these events is that I brought a poltergeist into the Bergstrom home and it attached itself to the lad.
Kara sits back and ponders what she has just read.
Well, perhaps I've brought a poltergeist into this house and it has attached itself to Hoss. All the events in the diaries have poltergeists attaching themselves to children. But Haas is so childlike, at times perhaps the poltergeist couldn't tell the difference. Anyhow, the question now is what to do about my little spirit. Does he stay with me if I leave, or does he stay permanently with Haas? I'll have to talk to Ben and see what he thinks. I'm sure he doesn't want this little fellow around here for all times. Well, no sense in mentioning it tonight. Tomorrow's soon enough.
Clara clears the bed of the books and stacks them on the desk. She turns to take the bedspread off and sees it folded neatly at the foot of the bed.
Well, thank you, Mr. P. I sure do appreciate that. Maybe you are handy to have around at that.
She points to the light, and it goes out.
Good night, sweet poltergeist.
In the living room, Ben, Joe, and Haas sip coffee and discuss what should be done about Kara.
I don't think Kara will laugh at us, as she seemed quite upset when poltergeists were mentioned. I have a feeling it's not the first time she ever heard the word, but it may be the first time it ever happened around her. In a way, I think it's kind of funny because she thinks she's a fraud.
Well, let's get her down here right away and see if we can all clear all this up. I don't much like hearing about the jokes being played up by somebody I can't see.
It's pretty late. Kara is probably asleep by now. It's nearly midnight. Why don't we just leave it until tomorrow? I'm sure the poltergeist has to get some sleep also.
I don't know. Midnight sounds like a great time to look into something like this, Bob. It is the witching hour.
This guy can't tell time, Dan. He's been witching me all hours.
Come on, let's turn in.
Ben gets up and goes to the door to lock it. Haas and Joe walk around the room, checking all the windows. As they walk around, the grandfather clock starts to strike the hour. Each bong is counted by the boys, and after the 12th bong, the clock rocks back and forth a couple of times, much to the astonishment of all. Haas almost faints and runs up the stairs.
Joe, I think it's later than it's ever been.
In Haas's room, early morning. Haas is sound asleep. There is a towel and wash basin on his dresser. All of a sudden, the towel rises, dips itself in the basin, and wringing wet, heads for Haas's face. The towel hits Haas right square in the face, lightly, and he leaps up as the towel keeps smacking him. Not hard, but enough to annoy him. Haas makes a grab for it, but eludes him, smacking at various parts of his anatomy. Haas leaps out of bed and starts to chase the towel, running out of his room wet with no shoes and just his nightshirt on. He makes a pretty ridiculous picture as he chases the towel down the stairs, yelling like a banshee. Joe runs out of his room and sees Haas chasing the towel down the stairs. The towel abruptly changes position and goes over Haas's head and behind him. It begins to pop him on the fanny. Joe starts to laugh. Haas yelps.
Joe, help me catch this devil.
Joe runs down the stairs, with also clad in whatever he sleeps in. The towel, almost as if it sees Joe, wraps itself around his foot and trips him. The towel then unwraps itself and begins to fly around the room some more. In the living room, the towel seems to die and fall to the floor. Haas leaps for it, and just as he is about to land on it, it flies away and hits the floor with a thud. For good measure, the towel pops him on the back of the head. Haas gets up, makes a grab for it, and slugs Joe, who is about to catch the towel. The two boys start chasing the towel around the room, both going in the same direction.
You go that way and I'll go this way. We'll head it off at the desk.
They race around in opposite directions, but in a circle, each one going toward the towel, which is now hovering in one spot. Each keeps his eye on the towel, which is about 6 feet high in the air. The boys run at top speed. Ben enters the scene, but it's too late for him to yell a warning. He puts his hands over his eyes as the boys running full blast plow into each other, knocking themselves out cold. The towel floats down and covers both of their heads. Ben shakes his head, goes to the kitchen, and returns with a bucket of cold water. He pours it over both of them. Kara stands at the foot of the stairs. She can't help but laugh. Ben roars with laughter. In the living room later that morning, Joe sits on the sofa with an ice pack over his eye. Hoss sits in the chair with a steak over his eye. Ben has a towel draped over his arm. Kara is upstairs.
Hoss, would you care for a baked potato with your steak?
Oh, Paul?
Now, I think we should sit down and have a serious discussion. Our little friend has pulled enough shenanigans on us.
Hoss and Joe exchange glances.
We've got to figure out a way to get rid of it. I think our answer lies with Madame Kara. I believe she brought it here. I'm just not sure that it will leave with her. That's something we have to find out.
I'm with you, Pa. Enough is enough.
Do you boys feel like breakfast this morning?
I lost my appetite when I woke up this morning.
Me too. Is there any coffee?
Yes. Wonder what Kara would like.
Kara comes down the stairs.
Did I hear my name mentioned?
Ah, good morning. Would you like some breakfast?
I think just coffee. I'm not very hungry.
Then we're all agreed. Coffee coming up.
Ben exits to the kitchen. Hoss and Joe eye Kara as she sits down next to Joe on the sofa. Joe gives her plenty of elbow room as if she were the one that caused his pain, and in a way she did.
Well, you two boys certainly do believe in strenuous exercise first thing in the morning. Where do you get all of your energy?
Both boys look a little sheepish. Ben returns with the coffee tray and sets it down on the table.
Dig in. I found some coffee cake if anyone is interested.
Hoss makes a dive for one.
I thought you weren't hungry.
You know he's always interested in food.
All that exercise made me hungry.
You get hungry when you're sleeping.
That'll be enough, boys. I'd hate to be the one to bang your heads together again this time. Boys, go find something to do outside. I want to talk to Madame Kara.
Okay, see you later.
They exit out the front door.
Ben, before you say anything, I want you to know I've appreciated and enjoyed being here very much, but I don't want to overstay my welcome, and there is my tour that's due to start.
I wouldn't worry about overstaying your welcome, but there is something else I would like to talk to you about. I hate to bring it up, but it has to be brought out into the open, and now is as good a time as any.
It's about what happened this morning, isn't it?
Yes. Do you have any idea what it's all about?
To be perfectly honest, yes, I do.
You do?
I've been doing a little reading in my grandmother's diary. She mentioned poltergeists several times, but I just can't believe that I could have brought one into your house. It's never happened before.
You'll never run into anyone like Hoss before. Thank heavens there's only one of him.
Well, I've gotten very fond of Hoss, as well as the rest of your family.
The feeling is mutual, but we're getting off the subject.
Have you made any decisions?
Well, yes, I have. I don't know if it will work, but we have to try. You could go ahead with your tour. That would give us each time to think about our relationship, and also you might figure out a way to get rid of this poltergeist.
And if the poltergeist shows up after I leave?
Then we'll all move out.
I'll go pack. I believe there's a stage in the morning. I'll stay at the hotel tonight. If nothing happens here during the night, then we can assume the poltergeist went with me.
Virginia City in the evening. Ben and Kara pull up in front. They get down and enter the hotel. At the front desk, Ben registers Kara.
Take good care of the lady. See that she gets anything she wants.
Yes, sir, Mr. Cartwright.
I'll see you in the morning.
Good night, Ben, and thank you for everything.
Kara leans over and gives Ben a light kiss. Ben grabs her and makes it a joint effort. It is the hotel at night. Ben exits the hotel. It has started to drizzle. He climbs in the rig and gets moving fast to miss the hard rain that starts to come down halfway between town and the Ponderosa. Ponderosa at night. Ben walks into the house. The boys sit in the dining room, having just finished dinner. They hear the front door open.
Joe? Hoss? You around here anyplace?
We're in the dining room. Did you get caught in the storm?
I sure did. I'm soaking wet.
I'll get you a cup of coffee.
Joe goes to the kitchen. Ben takes his coat off. Joe returns with coffee.
Here you are, Pa.
Thanks. Anything happened after I left?
Yeah, Hoss did some work this afternoon.
Well, that's some improvement. You know what I meant. Has the poltergeist been acting up?
No, things have been pretty quiet.
Well, that's good news, I guess.
You guess? I'm sure it's good.
By the way, where's Madame Kara?
I took her to town. She's leaving on the stage tomorrow for her tour. We thought it would be before the best. If it's quiet tonight, it will mean that the poltergeist went with her, and we won't be bothered anymore.
I'm going to kind of miss her around here. It was kind of interesting.
I am too, Hoss. I am too. I'm going to bed. I think you boys ought to do the same. Tomorrow's a heavy day.
The wind is howling and there is lightning and thunder and the rain is pelting down. They all go upstairs. Now we are in Joe's room. Joe is tossing and turning, not asleep. In Hoss's room, Hoss is laying in bed with the covers pulled up over his nose, his eyes wide open. In Ben's room, Ben is staring at the ceiling. All are shown in their rooms and a really loud crack of thunder sounds. They all jump and run to the hall saying, "What was that?" They look at each other sheepishly and return to their rooms, assuming the same positions as before. All is quiet. There is a slow but steady step, step, step. The sound of someone coming up the stairs. Joe looks a little green. Hoss looks terrified, and Ben looks concerned. Cautiously, they move toward their doors and peek into the hall. They see Hop Sing in his nightshirt carrying a lamp.
Hop Sing, what in blazes are you doing?
Hop Sing's scared. With storm and all crazy things happen here, I thought it'd be good idea if I sleep in Mr. Adams' room. Be near more live people.
You mean we'll all go together when we go? Okay, Hop Sing, you can stay here tonight.
Paul,
What, Hoss?
can I stay in your room tonight?
Inside the hotel, in the morning, Ben knocks on Kara's door. Kara opens it and smiles.
Good morning. I see you didn't sleep much either. What happened?
Nothing, I'm afraid. Are you ready?
Yes. There's a stage in 20 minutes.
How long will it be before you'll be back through here again?
Too long, Ben. You won't remember me.
I'll never forget you.
Come to think of it, I guess you won't. I've certainly given you plenty to remember. Well, let's go. I have to check out.
Outside at the stagecoach, passengers are loading up. Ben helps Kara in, and as the stage pulls out, Kara waves to Ben and blows him a kiss. She then looks around at her fellow passengers. Sitting across from Kara is an 8-year-old boy dressed in his Sunday best with a little hat and tie. The little boy is played by Dan, supposed to be Hoss, is reduced to the size of a child. Kara looks at him and gasps. As she does, the hat pulls over his ears and his tie slaps him in the face.
Oh, no!
Ponderosa Ranch, present day. Ben and Joe lounge around the living room. Hoss stands in front of the bookshelf.
I know you're going. I have to miss having the little Lily around, but I sure am glad I won't have to put up with any of that more nonsense from the poltergeist or goose.
A big heavy book edges out of the shelf, falls on Hoss's head and knocks him out cold. Ben and Joe look at each other, then at the title of the book, which reads, Ghosts and Other Spirits. They gasp and then start laughing. The end.
There's Adam's appearance. Nice job, Marla.
Good
Very
job.
nice.
That was amazing.
That was
Nice
very good.
job.
A lot of fun.
Wow.
I had to give Andy his request.
Is he still in here to appreciate it? Andy, are you going to pipe in here that Marla did as you requested? She gets
What
a
did-
gold star. That's hysterical.
What did Andy request?
That Adam
But
make
Adam make an
appearance.
appearance in the script.
I figured him high-fiving the poltergeist would be a good thing to do.
That's right.
Well, this was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for doing this. That was fantastic.
That was interesting.
That was better than I thought it would be. That went very smoothly, except for, this person doing the townie extras. That was-
Her hop sing was wonderful, though.
All right. Thank you again, everybody. You guys
All
were
right, thanks,
fantastic.
everybody.
And I'll
Good
let
to
you know
see
when it's
you.
posted.
Thanks, Gary.
Have a good one. Great job,
Okay.
Gary.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for everybody who attended.